This might look like a hand grenade from the future, but it's actually the 70mai Omni dash camera. And this is, without a doubt, the most unique dash camera that I've ever tested. And we'll take a look at it. It's shaped like a giant pill, and it's got some weight to it. And the reason for that is because inside of here is a motor which can control this bottom section. This bottom section with the lens on it rotates like a turret. And the idea behind this is that it's supposed to be able to detect suspicious activity. So say somebody breaks into your car. This thing is supposed to be able to turn around, locate the person doing this nefarious deed, track them, and record them. Similarly, it's supposed to be able to detect suspicious activity on the outside of the car while it's in parking mode, and then follow them as they move around your car. I'm going to talk more about this in detail later, but spoiler alert, I could never get this to work at all. We'll get there later, but for now let's talk more about the design. On the back of the camera here we have a small screen, and on this screen you can see a live view through the camera. You can also see some of the menu settings. The menu is controlled by these three buttons on the side over here. On the side is a USB-C port, and this is used to power the camera. Now you might have already noticed that there's one thing missing from this, and that is a MicroSD card slot. There is not one. There is no removable storage on this dash camera. All of the memory is built into this. So when you buy it, you have to buy it in either a 32, a 64, or a 128 gigabyte configuration. And I didn't think that this would be a huge deal at first, because I thought, well, okay, I can just take this dash camera over to my computer, plug in a USB cable, it'll mount the camera onto my desktop like most other cameras do, and then it'll show up as a hard drive, and I just copy the files off. Well, it ends up that doesn't work. I tried everything. Believe me, I tried 5 different USB-C cables. I tried using a USB hub. I tried directly plugging it in to my MacBook Pro. I tried every single USB-C port on my MacBook Pro. I could not get this camera to mount to my MacBook Pro. So the only way that I was able to get footage off of the camera is by using the app and downloading it. Now, in a lot of cases, that's really not a big deal. You might just need a 1-minute clip. It might just be that you saw something that you just wanted to get real quick, and the app is perfectly fine for that. But there are a lot of cases where this is a major problem. Suppose that you are in a major wreck, okay, and your car loses power. Well, if the car loses power, the dash camera loses power. If this doesn't have power, the app will not download anything from it. Normally in this situation, you would just pop the SD card out and give it to the cops, or maybe just take it over to a laptop or something like that, or you disconnect the whole camera and you would take that over to a computer. But that doesn't work with this. The only way to get footage off of this camera is have it powered and use the app. Another thing that's suspiciously missing from this camera is an incident button. So most dash cameras have a dedicated button that is called the incident button, and you press it when you want the camera to record footage to permanent storage. So say you see something spectacular, a semi-truck just goes flying off an overpass. Well, you reach up, you press the incident button, and that footage will then be stored to permanent storage on the micro SD card normally, and it will not get overwritten. So that way when you get home, it's still there, right? But there's no incident button on this camera. There are the menu buttons and the power button, and I thought, well, maybe, I could press one of these and it'll work as an incident button, even though I couldn't find any mention of it anywhere. I tried it, didn't work. There is no incident button on this camera, which I think is very strange. The camera does have, however, voice commands, and one of the voice commands is shoot emergency video. When you say this, and assuming it understands you, it will then save footage to this permanent storage. But here's the catch. It only saves 10 seconds. Well, actually, technically 15 seconds. It will save 5 seconds of the video before you said that. Okay, so it's always recording. It's buffered up. It'll save the previous 5 seconds and then 10 seconds after that. That is nowhere near long enough. So every other dash camera that has an incident button usually records 10 seconds prior to you pressing the button and then a whole minute afterwards. So you get the entire length of what just happened, right? 5 seconds plus another 10 is not enough. but that's the only way to do it on this, so I'm a little disappointed about that. They do supply the usual 12-volt cigarette plug power adapter cable thing like this, and this is not what I recommend that you use, okay? You really need to do a hardwire install with this dash camera because all the special features really revolve around parking mode with this Omni dash camera. Also, if you buy the hardwire kit, it also provides you with low voltage protection. That means that if your car battery starts getting low, the circuitry in this hardwire kit will automatically cut power to the dash camera so that it doesn't drain your car battery any further. Cuts it off at 11.8 volts. It's a little bit lower than I usually like to set mine. You know, most of these hardwire cables that I've had let you set what you want the cutoff voltage to be, and I usually set it a little bit higher, but 11.8 volts isn't bad. It's $20 to get this from 70mai. I very much recommend that you get that cable and do a hardwire. The Omni attaches to your windshield the same way pretty much every Chinese dash camera these days seems to attach, and that's with one of these. This is just a little electrostatic sheet of plastic. And the idea is once you peel off the protective film here, you just put this on your windshield and it will magically stick just by static electricity alone. There's no adhesives involved, which means it's very easy to get it off later when you want to get it off. And the dash camera does not stick directly to your windshield. It has a sticky pad, but it sticks to the electrostatic sheet. So that way, no adhesive directly on your windshield. It's a nice deal, and it does come with 2 of these sheets and 2 sticky pads, so you get 2 attempts at getting it right. The other nice thing is that there's actually a separate piece of plastic here. Actually, it's a separate part of the base, and it's a bayonet-style attachment. And if you want to remove the dash camera, say you just want to hide it because you're parked in a dangerous part of town or whatever, actually that's probably when you'd want your dash camera up there, but still, all you do is you just give it a twist, pops right off, you can take the camera with you. So I've popped this thing on and off a million times during this review process, trying to get the footage off of that camera, and I'm very happy that they have this because I have tested some other dash cameras that use the electrostatic sheet, but once the dash cam is stuck to it, it's stuck to it permanently. So good job on that bayonet-style release mechanism. Okay, so now let's get to the part you've all been waiting for, and that is the video quality itself. Now, unfortunately, this camera is only 1080p, and that's a bit disappointing. Now, the good news is it can do 30 or 60 frames per second. And all that being said, I will say this is actually the best 1080p footage I have ever seen. It's the clearest and it's the highest bit rate that I have ever seen in any 1080p dash camera that I have ever tested. However, I should point out right here that what you are seeing is not the original quality video, not even close. Matter of fact, this is 5th generation video. So the 1st generation is what the dash camera recorded to memory internally. Then after that, I had to get it off of there, so there's this conversion loss that I'll talk about in a second, just getting the file off of there. Then I did the editing of this review in Final Cut Pro. It spat out a file. That's going to be the 3rd generation. Then I had to recompress the file using Handbrake. That's the 4th generation. Use that file to upload to YouTube. Then YouTube recompresses it, and it's what you're seeing now, and that's the 5th generation. So believe me, this video straight off the camera looks way better than what you are seeing now. The camera does record in the H.265, otherwise known as HEVC format, and it records at a whopping 20.5 megabits per second. That is an outstandingly good bit rate. The problem that we run into here, however, is that there's no real easy way to get these original high-quality 20.5 megabit files off of the camera and onto, say, my MacBook Pro. Now, I can download these original files to my iPhone using the 70mai app. That's not a problem. The problem then is because there's no MicroSD card that I can just pop into my computer, I have to copy them from my phone to the computer. Long story short, there is no easy way to copy an H.265 20.5 megabit file from an iPhone to a MacBook Pro without Apple degrading the quality of the video significantly. And unfortunately, that's what you are seeing here. I had to copy the files over, and it did degrade them considerably during the transfer process. So it's just one more reason why this camera really needs a removable SD card. The quality of the night footage coming off of the Omni is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is definitely the best looking, best quality nighttime dash cam footage I have ever seen on any dash camera that I have ever tested. In this clip right here, now this was dusk. It was actually pretty dim out, but it looks like daylight just because of the way the camera adjusts everything. And if you look in this footage here, now this is full darkness. It was completely dark out, no moon, nothing. But it still looks really, really clear. Matter of fact, the noise in the black areas is shockingly low. Normally on other dash cameras, there is a tremendous amount of noise in these dark areas, but on here it's really, really good. Matter of fact, you're seeing a lot more noise than there really was, because like I say, we're looking at 5th generation highly degraded video right here. But if you look at the original video files on the camera, this nighttime footage is stunning. The camera also does have a time-lapse mode. This only works when you are in parking mode, and it records at 1 frame per second, so it's a nice additional security feature to have. So up until now, this dash camera has operated pretty much like every regular dash camera. But remember, the whole point of this is this funky turret design where the motor can turn this thing around. So let's talk about that for a minute. How does this actually work? Well, there's a few different things that it's supposed to do. First of all, you can use the voice commands to tell the turret to turn around while you're driving. So say, for example, we wanted to shoot video on the right. We'd say, shoot right. And then the lens turns over here to the right and it shoots to the right for about 10 seconds. You can see a timer counting down here. And then when it's done, the camera just simply returns back to the forward position. You can also say, shoot left, and it'll shoot left. You can also say, shoot inside. You can say a whole bunch of other things. Now, one of the problems here is that it only records 10 seconds. So say you say shoot inside, well, it's going to record the inside of the cabin like it is now. It just turned around to me, but it's only going to record 10 seconds. So say, I don't know, there's something going on in your car that for some reason you need this recorded. Once again, 10 seconds is not going to cut it, and there's no way to change this. 10 seconds is all you get when you give it any of these voice commands. I don't quite understand that, especially, given you might want the camera to record, say, your interactions with the police. Say you get pulled over and there's a cop over here, and you want the camera to turn around and record them. Well, it's only going to record 10 seconds. You're going to say, shoot inside. It's going to turn around, and first of all, it's only going to mainly get you. There's no mode where it will aim kind of at this angle. The left will go pretty far left. It'll mostly shoot your A-pillar. If you go right, it mostly shoots the instrument cluster on your windshield. So, it's not the most useful thing. Also, I have found that the voice commands tend to misfire a lot. And I'm going to say it's not, constant, but it's on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. The dash camera will just suddenly take a picture. Sometimes it will just randomly start turning different directions or do different modes. And I didn't say anything, but check this out.
In half a mile, turn right.
Now, the key word is shoot right. That's what causes the camera to move. But yet Waze said,
turn right.
Well, for some reason she heard turn right, and then it just started recording to the right. So it misfires quite a bit. Sometimes I'll just be listening to music and all of a sudden it takes a photo, or it decides that there's an incident that needs to record. So this happens on a daily basis. It's not terrible. I mean, it's not like it's constantly doing it, but the voice commands do misfire quite a bit. Being able to tell the camera what to do is fine and all. It probably has limited uses anyway, but remember, the main part of this is that this camera is supposed to be able to intelligently locate threats, to locate suspicious activity, follow the suspicious people around and record them. That's the whole point of this, right? Well, the fact is, I have never gotten this to do that even once in the entire week and a half to 2 weeks that I've been testing this dash camera. So for example, here's some footage of me at Home Depot. I've opened the back of the Jeep, and the camera knows this. The camera sensed the motion. So it triggers the little warning thing. It sends the camera spinning around, presumably looking for some sort of activity or intruder. It goes right by me, and then it just returns to the home position. Now, why it didn't see me and lock onto me and just continue recording me is, beyond me. But it does this every single time. So every time I get into the car, when it's in parking mode, I usually set off the sensor, because the action of the door opening and the action of me just getting into the car will trigger it. And once again, the turret spins around looking for something, presumably. I'm right there. It sees me, or at least it should see me, and it just continues just rotating right back to the home position. It doesn't lock onto me and consider me a threat and continue recording me. It's supposed to also do this with threats outside of the car. I have tried over and over to get it to recognize me as a threat. I have stood in the front of my car, waving my hands, running at the car, getting really close to the car, doing all sorts of crazy threatening maneuvers. And unfortunately, I have no footage of this to show you, because not once did this camera ever consider me a threat and consider, tracking or recording me. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe it knows that I'm the owner. I don't know. Maybe if I'd had my wife do it, maybe if I'd had my neighbor do it, maybe it would have done something else. But I don't think so. I don't think it knows who I am. It shouldn't. How would it know? Of all the things I've done, I have tried climbing into the back seat of the car, acting like I'm breaking in. I've done everything around the car, and it just not once has ever done its intended purpose. And that really is a concern, because it's the whole point of the spinning turret on this camera. All right, so now let's talk about something that I do like and that I think works really well, and that is the 70mai app. This app gets terrible reviews on the App Store, and I don't know why, because for me it's worked really, really well. I think it's actually one of the best dash cam apps that I've ever used. So let's get into it here. So here's the dash camera. Let's go look at the settings first. We just go into settings. It connects every time. I never have had any connection problems getting to the camera. It's fantastic. I'm not going to go through every single one of these settings here, but I do want to cover a few. So first of all, we can change the frame rate, 60 frames per second or 30. That's where you set that. We can set what information we want displayed on the screen or recorded on the screen, right? So we can tell it to turn off our speed and the location, the latitude and longitude, and luckily we can also remove the 70mai logo. Now, I've beefed about this before with other dash cameras that don't let you remove their logo from all the recordings. It's super annoying and super unnecessary to have their logo there. These guys let you remove the logo. Thank you very much. Here are two very interesting settings unique to this dash camera, and that is that you can set the default position of the camera during regular running mode, driving mode, or when it's parked. So for example, let's go into here. Here's a kind of a live view. You can use these arrows and you can set, basically the position that you want the camera to look when you're driving. So I'm going to set it there. Hit save. For some reason it spins around. Now it's calibrated. Okay. Now there's also the detect position during parking. This is basically the same thing, but when you're in parking mode. So say that you constantly park either in a garage like I am here, or in, say, a parking garage where all there is in front of you is a concrete wall. Well, there's no point in having this camera either do a time lapse or just looking for things against this concrete wall. It would be more useful if the camera turned around and maybe recorded inside the car and maybe, in back of the car. So what you can do with the same thing here is you do what I just did, and you just calibrate it so the camera is facing backwards during parking mode. So turn the car on, camera moves forward, park the car, camera records the inside. It's a nice feature to have. You can also set the sensitivity of the collision detection and the motion detection. Notice that I do have it enabled here, yet I have never once gotten it to actually work. All right, let's pop back out. We're going to tap down at the bottom here. Now this will show us the live view through the camera. A lot easier to see this view than the little tiny view on the dash camera itself. If we want to review our footage, we press this little mountain icon in the middle, and this will initially bring up the timeline. I love the timeline. Okay, this is kind of a new thing that I've seen dash cameras have now. Very useful thing. It shows you all of the footage on this single timeline slider, and they have done a great implementation of it because it's all done with this color coding. So green means just your regular driving loop recording, red are the emergency recordings, and yellow for parking surveillance, and purple time lapses and things like that. This works really, really well. Now down at the bottom they have a little bit of a display problem. These two buttons have text that doesn't fit. There's RS effects. I don't know what that does exactly. And then there's down-EOS, which I believe is downloads. So let's try that, downloads. And this is nice because what you do is you pick your starting point and then you just tell it, okay, I want to download, say, a minute's worth from there. And there we go. It shows us a minute around our set point. And then we can download that. Alternately, if you go to categories at the top here, this is more of the traditional view of what you normally would see in a dash cam app. It breaks down the different videos into categories, so you have your event videos. That's, if somebody hits your car and it triggers the motion. Parking videos, if something happened while it was parked. Time-lapse, so there's vlogs. I didn't talk about this earlier, but one of the voice commands is shoot vlog. Don't do it. Don't do it. All vlog does is it makes the camera just kind of spin around and go back. I don't know why that's a vlog, but that's what they're calling it. Anyway, there's one here that it shot all on its own. Like I say, the voice commands just fire off randomly, so it shot one vlog because apparently some song I was listening to, it thought said shoot vlog. There's photos as well. You can tell the dash camera to take photos and it'll go into here. I never once told it to take any of these photos. This is all just done, like I say, when it decides to misinterpret something, usually a song on the radio, something triggered it to record all of those things. And that's really how a lot of these events were recorded too, I think. Anyway, so the app works great. And I should point out also that downloading, from the app has worked fairly well. I only had one instance where I was downloading a selection of clips, a whole bunch of them at once, and it failed on one of them. It's the only time I've ever had it fail. Every other time it has worked. However, one observation that I do have, and this is a little strange, is that when you're downloading one clip, it goes relatively fast. It takes, I don't know, maybe 40, 45 seconds to download a 1-minute clip. That's typical of most dash cameras, but if I select a bunch of clips, they seem to go really, really slow sometimes. I was downloading some clips for this review at one point, and each clip was taking minutes. So I'm not sure if that's a software glitch or what was going on, some kind of weird communications issue, but it still downloaded, it worked, it just went really, really slow. So the app is great, it does work quite well, and like I say, it's one of the best dash camera apps I think I've used. So, my conclusion on the 70mai Omni dash camera is that it is a very unique dash camera with outstandingly good video quality. It's the best 1080p video I've ever seen in a dash camera. But the cons kind of outweigh the pros. There are a lot of issues with this thing, and the two major ones for me are, well, one, the lack of a removable MicroSD card. I think that's a huge, huge problem, especially since you can't even plug this camera directly into a computer and download the files that way. And the second thing is, of course, the fact that it doesn't seem to actually function for its intended purpose, which is to identify suspicious activity and track people and record things. I just couldn't get that to work even once. Now, granted, that may just be a matter of a firmware update. That can be resolved. Matter of fact, a lot of my little beefs can be resolved with a firmware update, like having one of these buttons act as an incident button. That would be really nice. Being able to record longer than 10-second long incidences. It really should be recording at least a minute, and it should record more than 5 seconds prior. But anyway, lots of things that I think can be dealt with the firmware updates. But in its current state as it is now, this is not a dash camera that I could recommend. However, if you did want to buy one of these, well, it's going to cost you a little bit. This is a fairly pricey camera for 1080p. It starts at $170 for the 32 gig version, and I would not recommend you get the 32 gig. I would recommend that you do get the 128 gig. It's going to cost you $200, plus you're still going to have to pay another $20 for the hardwire parking mode cable. And let's be honest here, the better solution in most cases for most people is going to be to get a 2 or 3 channel regular dash camera, one that records forward and inside the car at the same time. Having the camera swivel around like this is interesting, and I do think it's a unique idea to be able to track people if that worked. But at the end of the day, just having 2 separate recordings inside and outside, or 3 recordings on a 3-channel where it has a separate camera in the back, that's really probably the way to go. But if you do want something simple, this is a unique way to do it. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching.